a few days, but I finally understood Katja's tweet. She wrote that I gave a guest lecture on data-driven learning, but then asked whether it might be about data-driven learning. And so the question is, do we combine the noun lecture with on to then speak about the topic of the lecture, or is it more idiomatic to say a guest lecture about, followed by the topic, in this case about data-driven learning? Well, let's find out. And to do so, we're going to go to 𝘥𝘢𝘵𝘢-𝘥𝘪𝘷𝘦, which is a web-based Corpus tool, which has a number of tools, of corpora rather, to choose from. And I think we're going to go for news on the web. This is a very large corpus, which is probably good. Lecture is not a very, very frequent word. It's fairly frequent, but still I think a big corpus is going to be helpful. It shows us a range of different English varieties, and it's recent language. It's web language, but it's news articles, and so we can assume that these have been proofread and written by professional writers and professional authors. Let's see how we get on. So we click on the corpus to be able to search the corpus. We're going to really narrow it down. Because it's a large corpus, I'm going to narrow it down to a lecture. And then the question was, should it be on or should it be about? And the or sign in lots of corpus tools is the pipe. And on my keyboard, this is a German keyboard, and I've got a Mac laptop, it's Alt-7, and that's the combination of keys to produce the pipe, but you might have to find out what that is on your own keyboard. Then I click on Find Matching Strings, and I get this frequency result. So a lecture on that string is found over 5,000 times in the corpus. A lecture about is also a string that is found, but only 700 times. So it is considerably less frequent, but it is still frequent. And if we click on the string itself, then we'll be able to find out in which context it's used. And so here we have concordance lines that show us how it's used, and we can see, for example, here a lecture about beer making. So this is really the topic of the lecture, and that's what we're interested in. An acceptance speech into a lecture about something, again, there's a topic. A lecture about geographic South Pole, again, I suspect that is the topic. It does sound like this is the kind of meaning that Katja wanted to convey. We need to be careful when we have these concordance lines. They are not random, and so you may be looking either in terms of date or in terms of the source at a biased sample. So it might be a good idea to click on, for example, 100 or 200 or 500, depending on how much time you have, and then you get a random sample of 100, 200 or 500 concordance lines. And this might give you a better overview of the data and how this particular combination of words is used in practice. We can go back to frequency and check how a lecture on is used in context. Again, I recommend taking a random sample. So I'm clicking on 100, and then you can click and go through these various concordant lines and see that we have on and then also followed by a topic. So this person gave a lecture on stress management. So we're very much looking at the topic of the lecture here. That sounds good. We can also, if we're not sure at all what preposition to use, leave this blank and then click on POS in grey here, which stands for part of speech. There's a drop-down menu which then gives us various parts of speech, and so we're going to go for prep or, so any preposition, and this types in prep in capital letters. So if you use the interface a lot, then you'll know that that's what you need to type, and you won't need to go and click on the drop-down menu. And then we can find matching strings again. And this time we then have the results with a lecture, and then the most frequent preposition that comes after a lecture is on, again with our 5,000 plus hits. The next one is at, but we can imagine that at is likely to be a location, a lecture at some corporate convention, at a Moscow financial university, and so on. So that's not what we're looking for. Then we have a lecture in, and again I suspect we're going to have a building of some kind, or not necessarily, look, a lecture in medieval history. So here we do have a topic. A lecture in front of students, that's something else. But we also have a lot of in Halifax, in Glasgow. So here we have location cities. So not necessarily what we're looking for. A lecture by is probably going to be who's giving the lecture. And then we have about. So in terms of the meaning, a lecture on a specific topic, then we do have on as our most frequent combination of words, and about as the next most frequent. So in conclusion, Katja, you can use either on or about, but on is considerably more frequent, so it's probably your safest bet here. And that's how I would go about finding out on englishcorpo.org. But I'm sure there are lots of other ways of doing that, and perhaps you and your students would like to suggest more ways.